Well, welcome friends to what has been a very rainy Thailand, and having struggled to find light and discovered it was the exposure setting on the camera, and resolved that little issue. I then forgot in the last video to turn the actual light on, so apologies for that. It was still dark. Hopefully this is a little lighter, albeit the rain has stopped. It's still not quite brightened up yet, but now I think the camera is picking me up. It's quite steamy, humid, many mosquitoes to remind me where I am and why I'm here. It isn't to run away from our troubles when one looks into life spiritually and goes off to weird and wonderful places to investigate all of the possibilities that may entail. Often it is with a limited focus or direction, not much in the way of navigation. But more often than not, in this path, we have come to arrive at where we are through some direction and navigation, in the footsteps of our teachers, through their previous experience, having done exactly this. And it is those that I follow, coming here, open-minded, but also with some understanding as to what suffering there will be, what physical endurance one has to face, as well as some of the mental and emotional turmoil that one has to deal with through living in a different, and to perhaps some people a somewhat difficult environment for both the body and the mind to get used to. So in a way, rather than running away, getting out of our problems, we're running towards and really getting into it, to face everything directly. And you don't have to ordain, become a monk or a nun to do this. This is a practice we can employ in all of our lives, wherever we are, whatever we're doing. Every time you turn on the news, you'll hear stories of bad things. I mean, the world is subject to this thing called global warming, and is apparently coming to an end because of man. And no doubt man has been quite a large contributor in this. But I don't want to go into the whole debate on that. That wasn't the point. The point being, it's something that the media, the news, and people who are getting their attention from being in the media, in the news, latch onto. Bad news. There's wars going on right now, and these often also attract our attention. In our own countries, there's economic difficulties, political difficulties. In our local areas, there are problems specific to the place where you're living. And within our own homes and our families, there are difficulties. But of course we're all experiencing this life and are all subject to aging, sickness and death, ultimately. And this is what the Buddha taught, suffering. But on a more positive note, let's look at positive navigation. Let's look at how we can not run away from our problems, not run away from or turn our backs on and ignore all of the other aforementioned problems locally in our countries, worldwide. But face them with a slightly different perspective, to understand, to have compassion, and to help wherever we can, within and only within our own comfortable parameters and capabilities. But not be oppressed, not take on additional suffering to that which we already inherently have in aging, sickness and death. So, we want to be cheery. Why one is looking towards spirituality and moving away from the materialistic lifestyle, as you may well be doing, watching videos of this nature, is to find something deeper meaning, a deeper meaning to life. Some people consider it a journey. They are seekers. But it isn't a journey. You are not looking for anything. You are already here and you have already found it. But we choose to ignore it. So when these news stories pop up, wherever they pop up, we have this tendency to look, like the expression of, what is it, rubbernecking on the motorway if there's an accident of something. People can't help but look. Out of concern, of course, one might say, but also a morbid interest. And the people who are putting these pieces together, this news out there, know that. And of course they want to attract people's attention. So we don't get many newspaper headlines, or headlines, whatever format they are in these days, saying, a man was very kind to another man on the bus today. Or, yes, this local politician has decided to, rather than go out to his local restaurant to donate some money to, maybe that would get in the news, the local news a little bit, but it's not really the kindness and compassion and care for others and other people's success. So the first of the 4 Brahma Viharas, loving kindness, compassion and joy for others, are not really newsworthy items, are they? But nevertheless, they can be developed within ourselves. And with some positive navigation, our thoughts can be directed in that direction for a better sense of well-being and feeling about the world, despite the vicissitudes of life we're experiencing. So, despite war, despite global warming, which we have a tendency to blame on not just nature. I mean, this planet's been around for billions of years prior to man came along, and now suddenly man gets the blame for killing the planet. yes, we might make it unsustainable for human life, but I think the planet will be still here a long time after we have gone. Nature's very powerful. There's little a man can do to fight against it. It will do what it wants to do, even if it involves wiping out a whole species. How long were the dinosaurs here for? I don't know. But they weren't driving around in motor cars or pumping out gases of any kind. They were actually methane, which may have been the problem. But that's by the by. Largely, what we lose sight of is that it isn't humanity that is the problem. What the problem is we have is as in the Buddha's teachings of suffering and the cause of suffering, end of suffering and path leading to the end of suffering. The cause of suffering is really ultimately desire, coming from the root defilements, which are, in fact, desire, that of wanting to have through sensual desire, and not wanting, aversion or hatred, greed and hatred. And it's these two things that cause a lot of the problems that we see in the world and a lot of the problems we see within ourselves. And the third of the root defilements, delusion or confusion or ignorance, is not understanding that. And what this practice teaches us, both through practical application and through the knowledge, the understanding of the simplicity of its teachings, is how to go through life smoothly through these vicissitudes without having the additional suffering on top, which we add on by having ignorance and not understanding the cause of that suffering. So we discover this through the teachings of the Buddha, that a simple life, like living the life of a monk like this, will help. And it certainly does. But of course other problems come along. Heat, mosquitoes, rain, sun, far from home, or you're trying to practice in your home environment. Distraction, temptation, too comfortable. These things, all of these reasons why we don't sit and meditate. But that's okay. If we have the intention to meditate, we will at some point. We'll get round to it. But humanity, or even ourselves, are not to blame. As a whole, we are a good species. You think of the motorway. Again, I think I've already referenced it, but we're back to the motorway. Thousands of cars all shooting along the motorway at phenomenal speed, and even in rush hour, traffic hour through cities. Okay, it's different in different parts of the world, but largely speaking, we all try and go in the same direction as safely as possible. Not only for our own protection, we may be in a very safe car with our seat belts on, but we care for others. And if you just look at the sheer numbers there, thousands and thousands of people going from A to B each and every day, not all crashing into each other like bumper cars, who can push each other out of the way to get there first. No, as I say, there are places a bit like that, but mostly not, because we care. And this is what we need to see in others. And not only just the person we're seeing in front of us and talking to right now, but in humanity. Because how to live in this world responsibly, and how to enjoy living in this world responsibly, is really down to how we see this global community of ours, of the entire human race. And when we can see through positive navigation, through positive eyes, view the good nature of all beings, we in turn develop good nature in ourselves. When we see metta, loving kindness, karuna, compassion, mudita, joy for others, in others, we not only develop that within ourselves, but we develop the fourth of the Brahma Viharas, equanimity, upekkha. And equanimity is what we are trying to develop, to establish a calm mind, and to establish some relinquishment towards freedom from desire and therefore suffering, towards contentment, of which the symptom is happiness. Someone is only happy as a result of contentment, true happiness. It's not a smile, it's not a being pleased with what you've just got and what you've achieved. It's knowing that you want no more. When you get a new car, you're already thinking of the next one, or protecting the one you've just got. But when you've attained the ability to see what you have as being good enough, you have developed contentment to a degree, and therefore a true form of happiness. So you can look at the shopping mall, thousands of people, and maybe a few shop staff, a security guard, maybe even a policeman. But what stops all of those people just helping themselves? Not one security guard, one policeman, not even a whole, what do you call them, troop, gang, bunch of policemen coming out. You've seen in riots when there's been, what's this thing? When they all bash into the shops and take everything. Very unusual thing to happen. And out of sheer panic and desperation and need for survival. But ordinarily speaking, we respect. We even go into a shop, find what we need, and then wait in a queue to pay for it. And it's not really just because we don't want to get caught for taking it, or breaking the precepts, or breaking the law. We have the natural inclination to pay for what we are getting. Natural goodness that is there within us. So we don't have to travel to India or China or South America to find that. That goodness is already inherently within us. But what masks it is this curtain of greed, hatred and delusion. And mainly just delusion, ignorance, not understanding that it is just desire fueling the suffering. So if we just part this curtain a little through some gentle direction, then we can start to really see the good in others and the good in ourselves. And this does generate considerable happiness through contentment. And these four qualities, they call the four Brahma Viharas of metta, karuna, mudita and upekkha, are like a snowball rolling down a hill of snow. They just grow and grow and grow exponentially quickly once they get a root. And this is the practice. It requires moral virtue, just keeping the simple precepts, or trying to, having the intention to. And mindfulness, which I spoke about in recent videos, throughout your day, where you can be just careful, diligent, and bringing your awareness into the present moment, keeping it there as long as you can, and appreciating really what you have, because this is all you have. It's all you will ever have. This moment, the previous moment, the past, it's gone. The future, it hasn't arrived yet, and may not. But you can appreciate what you have in this present moment as goodness. Nothing really bad happens in the present moment. Suffering requires stretching over time, even pain. A short, sharp pain is not noticeable, like having an injection. But you leave the needle in and wiggle it and wiggle it and wiggle it for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, an hour, and there's suffering. And what are we doing when we're watching the news? What are we doing when we're ruminating over all of the badness going on in the world? We're wiggling that needle. So stop. Stop doing that. Think of all the goodness. Think of all those nice people in the shopping mall, going into the shops, buying their things, paying for everything, queuing up. Think of the people on the road, driving carefully to protect everyone else as well as themselves. Think of all the other kind things people do for each other throughout their days. Think of your parents, how they loved and looked after you, or even if they didn't, they gave birth to you, gave you this opportunity. Think of how you care for your children or your friends or your siblings, and how you work in a team at work. All of these positive things in our lives. And rather than wiggling that needle of suffering, stroke yourself, pat yourself on the back, congratulate yourself, be kind to yourself about all the goodness going on in the world. And this can be done from wherever you are, whenever it is, whatever your circumstances. There's always goodness to be seen. We're driving at the moment, going back to our motorway, not so much a motorway, but a road with, let's say, curbs. We're driving along, and we're really just going over this side a little bit, hitting the curb, bumping back into the middle of the road. Going over to this side, hitting the curb, bumping back into the middle of the road. On our journey through life, bumping off the curbs all of the way. What a horrible journey, bashed about like this. And what is it doing to your car? Well, it's ruining it. And it's certainly not doing much good to the comfort and the enjoyment of the situation for the driver. So what do? We steer it carefully down the centre of the road. Not bumping off of this curb, bumping off of that curb to stay in the road, guiding it gently, navigating positively towards wherever we're going. But we don't need to grip hold of this wheel with all our might, because similarly, what an uncomfortable journey that will be. We just hold it gently. And this is how we treat our precepts, our guidelines for life. This is how we treat our meditation, our actual practice in life towards developing positive mind states and reducing unwholesome mind states. And this is also how we develop wisdom. Not by trying to learn something really, really complicated and difficult in a big book. No, start with the body. Learn how your body feels when it comes up against something it doesn't like. Locate where that feeling is, and then just breathe. You'll soon pick up how much physical feelings are related to mental emotions, and vice versa. You won't have mental emotions without a corresponding physical feeling, and physical feelings also have corresponding mental emotions. And when one can identify these, it acts like a little circuit breaker, a stop, or even a comma, but something to just break the path of contact where we're either seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, or thinking about something, and our reaction, born of recounting past memories or imagining about what might happen in the future, rather than seeing it for what it is, just seeing light, hearing sound, smelling odour, tasting flavour, feeling hot, cold, comfortable, uncomfortable, and thinking positive or negative things. Just seeing it as that, knowing it as that, stops it in its tracks, stops that reaction. This is equanimity. It's not not caring, it's not not understanding, it's not not seeing or turning a blind eye to it. It's not reacting. And then using that calmness to react in the correct way. Holding the steering wheel gently as we drive along the road, guiding ourselves along. And then we really can just sail, like sailing across the ocean. We're not rowing. Smoothly, going with the flow of the world. And not feeling that we have to go against the flow of humanity or go against society. Yes, there are people, and maybe ourselves, we are doing, or were doing, things that perhaps aren't skillful in our actions of body, speech and mind. Maybe going out clubbing, drinking, partying. Well, you know, it's all done in our youth. It's really part of the courting game, isn't it, really? How it all starts in the procreation process, you know, this part of our primal basic instinct. And this is the basis behind delusion, that covers up, masks, is a curtain to seeing and realizing greed and hatred, wanting and not wanting, liking, not liking, loving and hating, aversion or running to. But when we can disperse that ignorance, past that curtain, get a sneak preview of what's going on, see things for what they truly are, then we're a long way towards developing a more positive outlook on life. So you can see, yes, what's going on in society, and maybe through the practice of meditation become a little less inspired by it, disenchanted by it. And that's a positive step forward in your practice. You don't feel you're missing out, but you don't also criticize others. You don't say, well, you know, they shouldn't be doing that. They will come to learn in their own time. Maybe or maybe not. They may enjoy this way of life, and it may be good for this time. It's not your problem. Morally, they're not doing any harm. In terms of the practice, it does. It's not good for meditation to do those things, like entertainment. We don't have entertainment as monks, TV, radio, music, because it is just a distraction from seeing the reality. We use those things to distract ourselves. But in lay life, there's nothing wrong with those things, as long as you know that is what you're doing. Knowing what you're doing means there is no delusion there. Being greedy without knowing you're greedy is a problem. Hating without knowing you're hating or why you're hating is a problem. But if you know why you're greedy, because I'm bored, I want to distract myself from boredom, or I have some distressing news, or I have some pain, what will take it away is eating something nice from the fridge. Knowing that is not as bad as just going to the fridge, because you've put that little gap between the reaction and the first impression, the contact that causes the reaction. And this is how we're driving smoothly down the middle of the road. So we look at the world not with rose-tinted glasses, going around like hippies saying peace and love, and we don't try and remove ourselves from society. Yes, as a monk I've removed myself from a society, but I've put myself into another society. The Buddha, in order for our practice to work, ensured that there are rules in place, many rules in place, that require our dependence on society for our very livelihood. Each and every day we have to get our food from lay people. We're not allowed to farm, store food overnight even. Why? Because running away, hiding ourselves in a cave and just going to samadhi for a very long time, growing some spinach and turnips and living off river water isn't a way to end suffering. Because it's just the same as immersing yourself in Netflix, drinking beers and eating popcorn. It's another diversion. It's closing your eyes to what's really happening, rather than seeing in reality what's happening and facing up to it. And that's what the Buddha taught us to do. Because if you are in the Netflix environment or in the meditation cave environment, there will come a time when you cannot be in one or other of those environments. And then you're going to have vastly multiplied levels of suffering as a result of being out of your comfort zone. So what this practice of sila, moral virtue, meditation, samadhi, and panya, wisdom, teaches us is how to develop those qualities of contentment in any situation, in any form. Whether you are rich, whether you are poor, whether you are a chief executive of a multinational company, or whether you work with your hands, making or growing or repairing things. Just for yourself, hand to mouth, like this. It's fine, it makes no difference. It's just a different way of achieving the same result. Putting food in your mouth and putting food in your family's mouth. Each and every day. So the monk does the same each day. Even this morning, pouring with rain, we go with our umbrellas and our bowls to the village, and the people still come out because they know it doesn't matter what the weather's doing, we'll be there. They put rice in our bowls. And how does that help? It helps us develop immense gratitude. And the people offering, giving, dana, the opportunity to give, generosity, have gratitude for that opportunity. So it's double gratitude. And I spoke recently in one of the talks about gratitude as being such a useful tool. Gratitude is like power steering in your car. You can really almost let go of the wheel with gratitude and just guide it gently like that. And you can go so much faster, more safely. And think of it that way. And then previously I talked about stillness of mind. We call equanimity, or upekkha in the Pali word. Similarly, with your power steering, you develop stillness of mind, equanimity, and from this is contentment. happiness. And after all, this is why you're watching this and not the news. Because the news, you might watch it in a minute, but what purpose will it serve? Instead of that, go on to the next video in this whatever playlist and watch something like this. Even one of my talks. They're a little bit older than this one, the last one or the one before that. Watch them all. That way you're developing, at least if you're not even listening much. There's no background music, there's no introductory music, there's no end music. Maybe in some of my earlier videos in India there's a lot of noise in the background, but it's natural. It's the environment I was in. Here you're hearing jungle sounds, forest sounds. But you're not getting quick, fast, boom, boom, boom. He killed this person's been sacked for doing this thing, this country's fighting that country, this many people died, this boom, 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 boom. What can you do about it? This has always been happening. It's not news. Gross misinterpretation of the content of that program is news. None of it's news. It's all happened before, more so and more in more ghastly ways. So nothing new about that. It should just be called, here we go again, repeating history. But it's a bit of a unsnappy title. So on that point, I should leave it there and express my gratitude for you watching. I hope there's something useful in here. If there is, please try and use it and share it with others. Friends, colleagues, family. And we'll speak again soon. Thank you for watching. Anamodana.